the doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened, and Ambassador Thomas Reed stepped into a silence so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat echoing off walls that stretched into infinity. He had prepared for this moment his entire life. He had studied alien languages, mastered diplomatic protocols, and memorized the histories of 100 species. But nothing could have prepared him for what stood before him now. The chamber was carved from the heart of a dead moon. A hollow sphere miles wide, its walls covered with balconies, rising endlessly toward a ceiling lost in shadow. On those balconies sat the representatives of 8,000 intelligent species, 8,000 civilizations that had conquered the stars while humanity was still learning to make fire dot, and every single one of them was staring at Thomas with expressions ranging from curiosity to disgust to something that looked terrifyingly like fear. Thomas forced himself to walk forward. His footsteps rang against the crystal floor, the only sound in a room that held millions. The platform he walked on was narrow, with no railings, suspended above a darkness that seemed to go on forever. One wrong step, and he would fall into nothing. At the far end of the chamber, rising from the darkness, like a mountain made of living shadow, sat the High Tribunal. 3 beings so ancient that their species had no name anymore. They simply were. They had been here when the first stars ignited, and they would be here when the last one died. The center figure spoke, and its voice did not travel through air. Instead, Thomas felt the words form directly in his mind, cold and precise. You are the representative of the species called human. It was not a question. Thomas answered anyway. I am Ambassador Thomas Reed of Earth. I come on behalf of my people to formally request membership in the Galactic Council. A ripple of sound passed through the chamber. It took Thomas a moment to realize it was laughter. Thousands of different species, all laughing at him in their own way. The tribunal member on the left leaned forward. Its body was made of crystallized light, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Your species achieved faster than light travel 40 years ago. You have colonized 12 worlds. You have a population of 9 billion. By our standards, you are infants. I understand, Thomas said, keeping his voice steady. We do not expect full membership immediately. We are willing to serve a probationary period. We wish only to participate in the galactic community and learn from those who came before us. The tribunal member on the right made a sound like grinding stone. Its form was difficult to look at, shifting constantly between states of matter. You misunderstand, human. We did not summon you here to discuss membership. Thomas felt ice form in his stomach. Then why was I summoned? The silence that followed lasted exactly 7 heartbeats. Thomas counted each one. The central tribunal member rose from its seat. It was taller than a building, darker than the void between stars, and when it spoke, Thomas felt reality itself vibrate with each word. Ambassador Reed, humanity has been under observation since your species first looked up at the stars and wondered what they were. In that time, we have witnessed something that has never occurred in the history of this galaxy. Something that violates every natural law we understand. I do not follow, Thomas said. Your species evolved in 300,000 years from primitive animals to interstellar travelers. The fastest any other species has achieved this transition is 1.2 million years. Most take far longer. The tribunal member drifted closer, and Thomas had to fight every instinct screaming at him to run. Do you understand what this means? Thomas shook his head. It means your development is impossible. It means humanity should not exist. Not as you are now. The holographic displays surrounding Thomas came alive with data. Charts, graphs, genetic analyses, historical timelines. All of it painting the same picture. Humanity was an anomaly. A glitch in the universe. A species that had grown too fast, learned too quickly, and achieve too much in too short a time. We have spent decades trying to explain your existence, the tribunal continued. We have failed. Every model breaks. Every theory collapses. There is only one possible explanation remaining, and it is the one we feared most. Thomas forced his voice to work. And what explanation is that? You were designed, Ambassador Reed. Your species was engineered, created with purpose by something that existed before this universe was born. The chamber erupted into chaos. Thousands of species began speaking, shouting, making sounds that defied description. Thomas stood frozen on his platform, trying to process what he had just heard. Designed by what? He managed to ask. The tribunal member did not answer his question. Instead, it said something that made the chaos stop instantly. There is a secret, Ambassador. A secret that has governed this council for billions of years. A secret that explains why humanity was created, what purpose you serve, and what will happen when you discover the truth. The being's form flickered, and for a moment, Thomas saw something beneath the shadow. Something vast and ancient and terrified. We cannot tell you this secret, not because we choose to keep it hidden, but because the act of telling you would begin a chain of events that cannot be stopped. What events? The end of everything. Not just your species, not just ours. Every star, every planet, every atom in existence would cease to be. Thomas stared at the tribunal. His mind raced through possibilities, explanations, counter-arguments. But he could find nothing to say. The council will vote in one standard cycle, the tribunal announced to the chamber. The question before us is simple. Do we destroy humanity now, while there is still time? Or do we contain them, isolate them, and pray that the secret remains hidden until their sun dies and takes them with it? The words hit Thomas like a physical blow. Destroy humanity. 8,000 species were about to vote on whether his entire civilization should be exterminated. But as the shock faded, Thomas noticed something strange. The tribunal member was not looking at him with the cold calculation of a judge pronouncing sentence. It was looking at him with something else entirely. Desperation. These ancient beings, these gods of the galaxy, were terrified. Not of what humanity might do. They were terrified of what humanity was. Thomas straightened his spine and looked directly into the darkness where the tribunal's eyes should have been. Before you vote, he said, his voice carrying across the endless chamber, I have one question. The tribunal waited. If humanity is so dangerous, if our very existence threatens reality itself, then why are you afraid to tell us the truth? Thomas took a step forward, and somewhere in the chamber, something gasped. What exactly are you trying to prevent us from becoming? The tribunal did not answer, and in that silence, Thomas understood that the real secret was not about destruction at all. It was about something far more terrifying. Transformation. Humanity was not a threat to be eliminated. Humanity was a key designed to unlock something that the galaxy had been hiding for billions of years. And someone, somewhere, wanted that lock opened. The lights in the chamber flickered, and in the darkness that followed, Thomas felt something watching him. Something older than the tribunal. Something that had been waiting for humanity since before the stars were born. The countdown had begun. Plus, the holding cell on the council station was surprisingly comfortable. It had a bed, a window showing the stars, and walls that hummed with a gentle warmth. But Thomas Reed could not relax. His mind kept replaying the tribunal's words over and over again. Humanity was designed, created with purpose. The end of everything. A soft chime announced a visitor. The door dissolved into mist, and a human woman stepped through. Commander Maya Torres wore the uniform of Earth's Interstellar Defense Force, but her face showed something Thomas had never seen in a military officer before. Fear. Ambassador, we have a problem, she said without greeting. 40 minutes ago, Earth's communication networks received a data burst. We traced its origin to somewhere inside this station. Thomas stood up. Someone on the council is contacting Earth? Are they trying to help us? Maya shook her head slowly. The data burst was encrypted in a language our systems have never seen before. Our best analysts say it should take decades to decode. But something is happening that we cannot explain. She handed Thomas a tablet. On the screen, percentages were climbing steadily. 20%, 25%, 30%. The encryption is breaking itself, Maya said. Something in that message is actively decrypting in our systems. And as it does, it is spreading to every computer, every network, every device on Earth. Thomas felt his blood turn cold. A virus? We thought so at first. But our scientists ran analysis on the fragments that have been decoded so far. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. Thomas, the decoded text contains descriptions of events that have not happened yet. Specific details about scientific discoveries that our researchers have not made. Names of people who have not been born. That is impossible. I know. But there is more. Maya pointed to the bottom of the tablet screen. Each decoded fragment has a signature. A biological signature encoded directly into the message itself. Thomas looked at the signature analysis. It was a DNA sequence. Human DNA. We ran it through every database we have, Maya said. No match. This DNA belongs to a human who does not exist. According to our genetic models, this person will not be born for approximately 300 years. Thomas stared at the tablet. His mind struggled to accept what he was hearing. A message from the future, signed by a human who had not been born yet, breaking its own encryption and spreading through every system on Earth. What does the message say? He asked. We only have fragments. But one phrase keeps repeating in every decoded section. Maya met his eyes. Come home. Before Thomas could respond, the walls of his cell began to glow. A holographic figure materialized in the center of the room. It was one of the tribunal members, the one made of crystallized light. Ambassador Reed, you have received the transmission. Thomas squared his shoulders. You knew about this. You knew someone would contact us. We knew it was possible. We prayed it would not happen. The tribunal member's form flickered with colors that Thomas had no names for. The encryption breaking in your systems is not a trick or a weapon. It is a modification. The message is rewriting the way your species thinks. Maya stepped forward. Rewriting how? Human consciousness has limitations. There are things your minds cannot perceive, concepts your brains cannot process. The message is removing those limitations. The light being pulsed with something that might have been sorrow. When the decryption is complete, humanity will be able to understand truths that would drive any other species. Thomas thought about the chaos this must be causing on Earth. Billions of people connected to networks that were being rewritten from the inside. Can we stop it? No. The process is irreversible. It was designed to be. Designed by whom? The tribunal member was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke a single word that echoed through the cell like thunder. You. Thomas shook his head. That makes no sense. We did not create this message. Not you as individuals. Humanity as a whole. At some point in your future, your species will evolve beyond physical form, beyond time itself. And when that happens, you will reach backward through the ages to ensure your own existence. The light being moved closer, its brilliance almost painful to look at. This is the secret we could not tell you. Humanity is not just a designed species. Humanity is the designer. Maya grabbed Thomas's arm. He is saying we created ourselves? I am saying far more than that. The tribunal member's voice carried a weight of billions of years. The universe, you know, is dying. Entropy claims all things in the end. Every star will burn out. Every atom will decay. Existence itself will fade into eternal cold and darkness. Unless something intervenes. Thomas forced himself to speak, despite the terror clawing at his chest. And that something is us? That something is what you will become. Your species will evolve into entities capable of rebuilding reality itself. You will become the architects of a new universe, caretakers of infinite souls across infinite timelines. The light being's form fractured, showing glimpses of something vast beyond comprehension. But this transformation requires one thing. You must choose it. You must walk through the door at the center of the galaxy, knowing exactly what waits on the other side. And if we refuse? The silence that followed lasted only a second, but it felt like eternity. If you refuse, then the caretaker never exists. The simulation has no guardian. And every species that has ever lived or ever will live simply ceases to be. Not dies, ceases, as if they never existed at all. Thomas looked at Maya. She looked back at him with eyes that reflected the impossible weight of what they had just learned. 8 billion humans on Earth. 8,000 species in the Council. Countless civilizations across time and space. All of them depending on a choice that humanity had not yet made. The transmission will finish decrypting in 40 hours, the tribunal member said. When it does, your species will understand everything. The coordinates to the galaxy's core. The nature of the door that waits there. The truth of what you must become. Its form began to fade. The council will vote to destroy your species before that happens. They believe non-existence is preferable to the risk of your refusal. Wait, Thomas called out. If this is our destiny, why would we refuse? The tribunal member paused at the edge of visibility. When it spoke again, its voice was barely a whisper in their minds. Because becoming eternal means leaving everything else behind. Your families, your homes, your very humanity. You will watch everyone you love live and die while you exist forever. The light faded slowly. Some species would make that sacrifice willingly. Others would not. And we have watched your kind for 300,000 years. Ambassador Reed, we know how much you value your brief. Earning lives. The hologram vanished. Thomas and Maya stood alone in the cell, surrounded by stars that seemed colder and more distant than they had ever been before. Somewhere, a clock was ticking. 40 hours until humanity learned the truth. And somewhere in the depths of the council station, something ancient was watching them. Something that had been waiting since before time began. Waiting for the key to finally reach the lock. The council voted in secret. Thomas Reed was not allowed to be present. He could only wait in his cell, watching Earth spin slowly outside his window, and wonder if his home would still exist when the vote was finished. Maya Torres had returned to their ship, the Prometheus, to coordinate with Earth's military command. The decryption was now at 60%. Reports were flooding in from every continent. People were experiencing things they could not explain. Scientists were solving problems that should have taken decades in a matter of hours. Artists were creating works of such beauty that viewers wept without understanding why. Children were speaking in languages that had never existed. Humanity was changing, and there was no way to stop it. The door to Thomas's cell dissolved, and 2 armed guards entered. They were not human. Their bodies were made of something that looked like liquid metal, constantly flowing and reforming. They did not speak. They simply gestured for Thomas to follow. He was led through corridors that seemed to exist in impossible geometries, passing rooms where beings of light conversed with creatures of shadow, where living machines debated with clouds of pure thought. The council station was more than just a building. It was a civilization unto itself, containing wonders that humanity had never imagined. Finally, they reached a door made of absolute darkness. The guards stopped and pointed. Thomas understood. He was meant to enter alone. Inside, he found a being he had not seen before. It sat in the center of an empty room, its body made of pure mathematics. Equations flowed across its surface like blood through veins. It had no face, no features, just endless calculations spiraling into infinity. "Ambassador Reed," the being said. Its voice sounded like reality itself computing. "I am Orath. I was once a member of the High Tribunal. Now I am in exile." "Why were you exiled?" "Because I dared to speak the truth." Orath's equations shifted, forming patterns that hurt to look at. "The Council believes they are protecting the galaxy by keeping humanity ignorant. They are wrong. They have always been wrong." Thomas stepped closer. "Then tell me the truth." "All of it." Orath was silent for a moment. Then the equations on its surface began to form images. Thomas saw the birth of the universe, the first stars igniting, the first life emerging from cosmic chaos. He saw civilizations rise and fall across billions of years. And he saw something else, a pattern. "Every species in this galaxy believes they evolved naturally," Orath said. "They are correct. Their development followed predictable mathematical progressions. They grew at the pace that physics allows. The images shifted to show humanity's timeline. But your species broke every prediction. You should still be building mud huts. Instead, you are reaching for the stars. The tribunal said we were designed. That is only part of the truth." Orath's form expanded, filling the room with shimmering calculations. "You were designed by yourselves. Your future selves reached back through time and modified your genetic code at the moment of your species' birth. They accelerated your evolution. They planted the seeds of your intelligence. They did this because they had no choice." Thomas felt his legs weaken. Why did they have no choice? Because without the acceleration, humanity would not develop quickly enough. The door at the galaxy's core has a time limit. It will only remain open for a specific window. Miss that window, and the opportunity is lost forever. The simulation continues to decay until nothing remains. So our future selves engineered our past to assure we reach the door in time? Yes, you are a paradox, Ambassador. A species that created the conditions for its own existence. This is why you developed so quickly. This is why your minds are capable of growth that other species cannot match. Orath's equations formed something that looked almost like a smile. And this is why the Council is so afraid. They have spent billions of years believing they were the masters of this galaxy. They cannot accept that they were always pieces on a board controlled by humans who have not yet been born. The room trembled. Distant alarms began to sound. "The vote has concluded," Orath said. "The Council has decided to destroy your species. A fleet of planet killers is being deployed. They will reach Earth in 72 hours. Thomas felt rage and terror battling in his chest. They would commit genocide to prevent us from reaching the door? They tell themselves it is mercy. They believe that non-existence is better than the risk of universal collapse. Orath's form dimmed slightly. But there is something they do not understand. Something even I only recently calculated. What? If they destroy humanity before you reach the door, the paradox breaks. Your future selves cannot modify your past if you have no future. The timeline collapses. Orath's equations began spinning faster and faster. And when a timeline collapses, it does not simply end. It takes everything connected to it. Every species that ever interacted with humans. Every world that ever felt human influence. Every moment that humanity's existence affected. Thomas stared at the mathematical being with dawning horror. They would destroy themselves too. They would destroy everything. Not because of what humanity becomes, but because they prevented humanity from becoming anything at all. Orith began to fade. The transmission in your systems is almost complete. When it finishes, your species will understand the coordinates to the galaxy's core. You must reach the door before the fleet reaches Earth. It is the only way any of us survive. Wait, Thomas said. Why are you helping us? What do you gain from this? Orath paused at the edge of visibility. I have calculated every possible future, Ambassador Reed. In every scenario where humanity reaches the door, the universe is saved. In every scenario where you are destroyed, everything ends. The last of the equations faded into nothing. I am not helping you for humanity's sake. I am helping you because I wish to continue existing. The door behind Thomas burst open. Maya Torres stood there, breathing hard, her uniform torn. Thomas, we have to move. The Council's security forces are trying to seize the Prometheus. I barely got away. Thomas ran. They sprinted through corridors that twisted in ways that made no sense, dodging patrols and security systems that seemed designed by minds beyond human understanding. Somehow, Maya knew the way. She moved with certainty through the chaos, leading them toward a docking bay where their ship waited. How do you know where to go? Thomas gasped. I do not know, Maya admitted. Something in my head is guiding me. Like I already know the path. The transmission, it was changing them, giving them abilities they had not earned and knowledge they had not learned. They reached the Prometheus just as security forces closed in. Maya threw herself into the pilot's seat while Thomas sealed the airlock. The ship launched with a force that pressed them both into their chairs, breaking free from the station and accelerating toward open space. Behind them, the Council station grew smaller, but in front of them, dozens of ships were already moving to intercept. And beyond those ships, millions of light years away, something was waiting at the center of the galaxy. Something that had been watching humanity since before they took their first steps on Earth. Something that was them, and would be them, and had always been them. The clock was still ticking. 72 hours until the fleet reached Earth dot, and somewhere in the void, the door at the galaxy's core began to pulse with light that had waited billions of years to be seen. The Prometheus screamed through space at speeds that should have torn it apart. Behind them, Council warships fired weapons that bent light itself, creating explosions that looked like dying stars. But somehow, the ship kept flying. Somehow, Maya Torres piloted through gaps that should not have existed, dodged attacks that should not have been survivable. Thomas Reed stood at the communications console, broadcasting a message to every species in the galaxy. His voice carried across millions of light years, reaching worlds he would never see and civilizations he would never meet. This is Ambassador Thomas Reed of Earth. The Council has voted to destroy my species. In 70 hours, a fleet of planet killers will reach our home and murder 8 billion innocent beings. He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in across the cosmos. They tell you this is necessary. They tell you humanity is a threat to existence itself. They tell you our destruction will save the universe. Thomas gripped the console so hard, his knuckles turned white. They are lying. The data streamed out with his voice. Everything Orith had told them. The truth about humanity's origin, the paradox of their creation, and the mathematical proof that destroying humanity would not save the galaxy. It would end it. Every species that has ever interacted with humans is connected to our timeline. If we are erased from existence, the collapse will spread. Your worlds, your histories, your futures. All of it will vanish as if it never was. Thomas looked at the stars streaking past the viewport. The Council is not protecting you. The Council is leading all of us to annihilation. He ended the transmission and waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Maya called out from the pilot's seat. Thomas, look at this. The tactical display showed the ships pursuing them. One by one, they were slowing down. Some were stopping entirely. Others were turning around, heading back toward the council station dot, and then the communications console lit up with incoming messages. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Species that had never spoken to humanity before were reaching out, offering support, demanding answers from the council. "They are listening," Maya whispered. They actually listened. But Thomas knew they could not celebrate. The planet killer fleet was still coming. It was too far away to have received his broadcast yet, and its commanders were fanatics who believed they were saving the universe. No amount of logic would stop them. The only hope was to reach the door before the fleet reached Earth. If humanity could complete their transformation, could become what they were meant to become, then there would be nothing left to destroy. "Set course for the galactic core," Thomas said. Maya turned to stare at him. "That is millions of light years away. Even at maximum speed, it would take us years to reach it." The transmission gave us coordinates, and something else. Thomas pulled up the navigational data that had been flooding his mind since the decryption reached 80%. There are passages through space that normal ships cannot see. Shortcuts through dimensions that physics says should not exist. But we can see them now. We can navigate them. Maya studied the data, her eyes moving in patterns that were too fast, too precise. The changes happening to her were accelerating. "I see it," she said slowly. "I see the path." She adjusted the controls, and the Prometheus lurched into motion. Space around them twisted, folded, became something that Thomas's old mind could not have comprehended. But his new mind, the mind being built by the transmission, saw it as clearly as a road through a forest. They plunged into the impossible. The journey took hours, but it felt like years. They passed through regions where time flowed backward, where cause and effect had no meaning. They saw dead stars that were somehow still alive, planets that existed in multiple places simultaneously, civilizations that had transcended matter entirely, and now lived as pure patterns in the fabric of SPACETIME. And everywhere they went, Thomas felt something watching them, something vast and patient, and somehow familiar. "We are almost there," Maya said. Her voice had changed. It resonated with harmonics that human vocal cords should not have been able to produce. "I can see the core." Thomas moved to the viewport and saw something that stopped his heart. The center of the galaxy was not what astronomers had always believed. It was not a massive black hole surrounded by ancient stars. It was a structure, a construction so vast that it dwarfed solar systems. Its surfaces were covered with patterns. That might have been writing, or might have been circuitry, or might have been something that had no name in any language. And at its center, glowing with light that predated the universe itself, was a door. "It is beautiful," Maya whispered. "It is us," Thomas replied. "Somehow, it is us." The Prometheus approached slowly now. Other ships surrounded them, vessels from species across the galaxy. Not enemies, witnesses, beings who had heard Thomas's broadcast and come to see whether humanity would save them or doom them. A communication came through from Earth. Dr. Victor Nash, the scientist leading the analysis of the transmission, appeared on the screen. His eyes were wide with something between terror and wonder. "Thomas, the decryption is at 98%. We understand now. We understand everything." Victor's voice cracked. "The door is a threshold, a boundary between what we are and what we will become. When we pass through it, we will exist outside of time. We will see all of history as a single moment, past and future equally accessible. And we will become the caretakers of everything," Thomas said. "Yes, but Thomas, there is something else. Something the Council did not tell you." Victor leaned closer to the screen. "The transformation is not automatic. It requires consensus. Every human being across Earth and all our colonies must choose to accept it. If even a small fraction refuses, the transformation fails. Thomas felt the weight of those words pressing down on him. 8 billion people, all being asked to give up their humanity, their mortality, their connection to everything they had ever known. How do we ask them to make that choice? We do not ask them, Victor said. We trust them. The transmission has given them the knowledge they need. They understand the stakes. They understand what they will lose and what they will gain. He smiled sadly. For the first time in human history, every single person on Earth knows exactly the same truth. The Prometheus drifted closer to the door. Its surface rippled like water, like thought, like possibility. Behind them, somewhere in the vastness of space, the planet-killer fleet was still coming. 48 hours until it reached Earth. 48 hours to convince 8 billion people to become something beyond human. Thomas looked at Maya. She looked back at him with eyes that glowed faintly with the light of the door. Are you ready? She asked. No, Thomas admitted, but I do not think anyone ever is. He turned back to the door. Somewhere beyond it, his future self was waiting. The being that had reached back through time to create him, to engineer his entire species, to set in motion events that would either save everything or destroy it. The moment of choice was coming, and for the first time in his life, Thomas Reed understood exactly what it meant to be human. It meant facing the impossible and choosing anyway. The door stood before them, vast beyond comprehension, patient beyond time. Thomas Reed and Maya Torres stepped off the Prometheus onto the structure surrounding it, their feet touching surfaces that hummed with energy older than the stars. They were not alone. All around them, ships from Earth were arriving. Scientists, soldiers, diplomats, ordinary people who had found ways to reach the core. And watching from a distance, vessels from 1,000 species waited in silence to see what humanity would choose. The transmission had finished decrypting. Every human in existence now understood the truth. The door, the transformation, the endless burden and infinite gift that waited on the other side. Thomas looked at his hands. They seemed so fragile now, so temporary. In a few hours, these hands would either cease to exist or become something capable of shaping galaxies. Maya walked to the edge of the platform and gazed at the door. Light pulsed across its surface in patterns that were almost like breathing. I talked to my daughter before we left Earth, she said quietly. She is 7 years old. She understood everything the transmission taught her, understood it better than most adults. And do you know what she asked me? Thomas shook his head. She asked if we would still be able to love each other when we become whatever this door makes us. Maya turned to face Thomas, and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I did not know how to answer her. Before Thomas could respond, a new ship emerged from the impossible geometries of space near the core. It was a council vessel, bearing the symbols of the High Tribunal. It approached slowly and came to rest near the platform where the humans had gathered. The tribunal itself materialized before them. All 3 ancient beings, their forms flickering and unstable, so close to the door that predated their existence. You have come to the threshold, the central figure said. We cannot stop you now. Even our fleet is meaningless against what you might become. Then why are you here? Thomas asked. To witness. To understand. The tribunal being's voice was heavy with emotions that had accumulated over billions of years. And to apologize. Thomas stared at them in shock. We feared you because we did not understand you. We tried to destroy you because we could not control you. The being drifted closer, and Thomas saw something he had never expected to see in an entity so ancient. Humility. We have guided this galaxy for eons. We have believed ourselves wise, benevolent, necessary. But we were merely caretakers in the absence of the true caretakers. We were holding space for you until you were ready to claim your purpose. The tribunal turned to face the assembled humans. Thousands of them now, with more arriving every minute. Whatever you choose, we will accept. If you walk through that door and become the architects of a new reality, we will serve you as we once served ourselves. If you choose to remain mortal, to reject the burden of eternity, we will face the consequences alongside you. The ancient being bowed. We are sorry for what we tried to do. We are sorry for the fear that drove us. Thomas looked at Maya. She looked at the tribunal. And then she looked at the door. You said you could not answer your daughter's question, Thomas said to Maya, about whether you could still love each other. I could not. I still cannot. Thomas walked toward the door. Its light washed over him, warm and cold at once, welcoming and terrifying. He pressed his hand against its surface and felt infinity rushing up to meet him. And in that infinity, he found his answer. We will not stop being human, he said, turning back to face everyone. That is the truth the Council never understood. The transformation does not erase what we are. It expands it. We will become something larger, something eternal, something capable of caring for all of existence. But the core of what we are, the love, the fear, the joy, the sorrow, it all comes with us. He looked directly at Maya. You will still be able to love your daughter, and she will still be able to love you. That is what makes us the right choice for this. That is why our future selves chose us for this burden. Because we are a species that will carry our humanity into eternity rather than leave it behind. The door began to glow brighter. Across the galaxy, humans felt it. On Earth, in the colonies, on ships scattered throughout space. They felt the choice presenting itself, not as a demand, but as an invitation. Come home, the light seemed to say. Come home and bring everything you are with you. Maya closed her eyes. Thomas closed his. All around them, humans made the same decision in the same moment. Not because they were forced to, not because they were tricked, but because they understood that this was what they were meant for. The door opened. Light poured through, not blinding but illuminating. It touched every human mind simultaneously, showing them what waited on the other side. They saw themselves as they would become, vast beings of thought and love, spanning dimensions, nurturing realities, caring for every soul that had ever existed or would ever exist. They saw the weight of eternity, and they accepted it. One by one, humans stepped through the door. Some walked alone. Some held hands with loved ones. Some carried children who were already laughing with joy at the wonders they could now perceive. Thomas was the last. He stood at the threshold, looking back at the galaxy he was about to reshape. The tribunal watched in silence. Around them, representatives of 1,000 species witnessed the moment that changed everything. Thank you, Thomas said to them, for being afraid of us. It taught us that we needed to be worthy of your trust. He turned and walked through the door. A transformation was instant and eternal. Thomas felt himself expand beyond his body, beyond time, beyond everything he had ever known. He felt every human who had ever lived becoming part of him, and he became part of them. Not a loss of self, but a joining. A family grown to infinite size. And in that infinity, he found something waiting for him. Versions of himself from the future that had already become what he was becoming. They welcomed him with love that spanned eons. You made it, they said. You chose correctly. Thomas looked back through the veil between mortal and eternal. He saw the galaxy, his home, the place where humanity had grown from nothing into something magnificent. We will take care of it, he promised. All of it. Forever. The door closed behind the last human. And across the galaxy, things began to change. Stars that were dying found new fuel. Worlds that were barren bloomed with life. Species that had lost hope discovered it again. not because of magic or miracle, but because something in the fabric of reality itself had shifted. The universe had new caretakers now, parents who remembered what it meant to be children. On Earth, the planet killer fleet arrived to find nothing but an empty world. No humans remained in physical form, but carved into the stone of every mountain, written in the clouds of every sky, encoded in every atom of every grain of sand, was a message: we have not abandoned you. We are everywhere now, in every sunrise and every dream, in every moment of kindness and every act of courage. We are humanity, and we have become eternal, and we will love you forever. The Council's ships withdrew. The fleet disbanded. Across the galaxy, beings looked up at their stars and saw something different in their light, dot warmth, dot somewhere outside of time. Thomas Reed watched his daughter's daughter take her first steps on New Earth 300 years later. He saw civilizations rise and fall and rise again. He saw the universe grow and change and become something beautiful beyond imagination. And he smiled because he was still human, still capable of love, of wonder, of joy. That was the secret the Council had never understood. Humanity was not a threat to be contained. Humanity was a gift to be given, and now that gift belonged to everyone. Forever.